New York Giants vs. Minnesota Vikings, live grades and analysis for Minnesota. In what might be the worst Monday night football game ever, the Minnesota Vikings found themselves testing out newly acquired quarterback Josh Freeman against an injured and struggling New York Giants team. A lot of Vikings fans may have bailed on the season, but there will be some critical takeaways for the game for Minnesota, in particular when it comes to evaluating Freeman and his chemistry with the receivers. Finally, Vikings, 7. Giants, 23. Final game analysis. Pass offense. Minnesota's passing game managed to get worse after the half, and Freeman completed 20 of his 53 passes by game's end. Of the 4,820 games since 2004, there have been 81 total performances with a worse completion percentage. It is in no way encouraging that the Vikings threw it better than 1.6% of history's worst performances, because players at nearly every level were culpable. Freeman looked terrible, while his receivers and the offensive line nearly looked worse. Run offense. The Vikings didn't run Adrian Peterson much after the first half, despite the fact that the game wasn't out of reach for Minnesota until well into the fourth quarter. But Peterson didn't avail himself well, either. 2.2 yards a carry doesn't look good on anyone's resume. The greater blame likely lies with the offensive line, as Peterson had some miscues, but not enough to explain those poor numbers. Pass defense. Eli Manning's numbers don't do the game justice. Manning's failures were his own and not the fault of the Vikings secondary, which was not only out of position on a number of plays, but unable to take advantage of the multiple gifts Eli Manning was willing to give them, in the form of poorly thrown passes and easy interceptions. The only bright spot was a pass rush that could easily get to Eli Manning, even if he only ended up taking 2 sacks all game. Run defense. The Vikings' run defense gave up fewer successful runs during the second half, and Aaron Henderson in particular tightened up his game. The Giants' running game did even worse after halftime, and neither of the Giants' rusty running backs could get going. While New York's offensive line hasn't been good much of the year, the Vikings still performed well in this area to their credit. Special teams. The special teams unit went south quickly after a relatively strong performance early on. Despite the Vikings' long snapper Colin Loeffler recovering a fumbled punt return from the Giants, Minnesota came out of the game looking much worse on special teams, in no small part because the Giants' own long snapper, Zach Biasi, returned the favor by recovering a Marcus Sherrill's fumble. Sharrif Floyd fumbled his own return and the Vikings weren't able to get much going after that. Coaching. Aside from playing Josh Freeman when he clearly wasn't ready, the Vikings coaching staff made mistake after mistake. They continued playing other players who didn't deserve to be on the field, entered with a poor, pass-heavy game plan and could not adjust to the relatively simple responses the Giants countered with. This was perhaps the jewel in the paper crown of their utter lack of skill and achievement, and the entire staff will want to keep this game off their resume.